Can you tell us something about your experience yesterday in the Oireachtas? Yeah, I'd be interested to hear a little bit more about that.
So the Irish Parliament being led, well, particularly in regards to this piece of legislation, it is certainly a crusade of Simon Harris, the Taoiseach,
Mm,
Minister for Foreign Affairs.
mm,
So the bill is called the Prohibition on the Importation of Goods,
mm,
and it specifically tries to go after any goods produced in East Jerusalem, Judea and Samaria, or the West Bank, as it's also called. Um,
mm,
and yeah, so essentially that's being brought forward at the moment. It first came about way back in 2018, called the Occupied Territories Bill. It's brought
mm,
about by Senator Francis Black, ignored for, well, sorry, it was embraced, but then it was shelved and never brought into,
enacted. Yeah,
never enacted, because
yeah.
it goes against EU trade
Mm,
laws. Trade is, if you're a member of the European Union, individual nation states can't pass their own pieces of legislation on it when it comes to trade. But Simon Harris is now plowing ahead anyway with it. And yesterday there was it's been in the Foreign Affairs Committee now for a few weeks. Of course, the other side to us, the pro-Palestinian view, have had two opportunities to go into this
mm,
Foreign Affairs Committee and do kind of hearings where they give a statement, and then lawmakers who are on the committee, cross parties, TDs and senators, will put questions to them. And we were thankfully invited in yesterday as part of the
mm,
Ireland-Israel Alliance, and then also the Jewish Representative Council of Ireland, to give a bit of pushback on this bill.
mm.
And
Yes,
there was Alan Shatter, Morris Cohen, Chief
yes.
Rabbi, and Natasha Hausdorff as well, who was appearing online.
Mm.
So really some excellent voices there. And yeah, it was, that's a bit of a background. And yeah, as I'll come to more in a minute.
Very interesting indeed. But it seems to have fallen on deaf ears, because these people are incapable of engaging with facts. And I think a lady who's making comments here, who says she's white, ethnic British, as if it had anything to do with it. I'd like to address this, because it's very interesting. This is indicative of what I term Palisteria, people incapable of handling facts. Now, what she says here is she's white, ethnic British. I have been protesting against the Zionist-led Israel. I mean, it's basically a stream of consciousness. There's no cogent argument here. It's continued persecution of the Palestinians for 77 plus years, since she was 11 years old. So it's a little mixed up with a little bit of emotive language as well. Now, let's remind this lady, Michelle Norris, that there were no Palestinian people when the United Nations partition plan was drafted. So there was nobody was even speaking of a Palestinian people all those years ago, for one very simple reason: because they didn't exist. And people should bear in mind that there was a partition plan whereby, and it concerned another Arab state, as if there was a lack of Arab states. And people should bear in mind that not only were the Arabs given 44% of pre-1967 Israel as well, and there was no occupation of Judea and Samaria. There was an illegal occupation by the Jordanians. So people should try to address these facts. Michelle Norris, try reading a little bit. Try
Okay.
coming out. Try coming out of that echo chamber. Use the neurons you have left.
But that's what you said there, like, for as an example, those are serious points that were attempted to be made yesterday by members of our side.
Mm,
Let's speak about, okay, the history of Jerusalem. Why do you want to ban goods from East Jerusalem? Can we even talk about in relation to the West Bank? What's the difference between area A, B, and C? These are sort of technical, legal, and historical details that the committee had really no interest in getting into.
They have not. It is an act of self lobotomization, as this lady has clearly illustrated. She's incapable of connecting the dots and dealing with facts. Facts simply don't get in her way.
And I mean, okay, regardless of even the legality and morality of trying to put forward this bill. I mean, the first bill since 1945 where a European country will try and limit commerce with Jewish businesses. From a selfish point of view, from the Irish state, shall we say, and its tax-paying citizens, number one, this would immediately bring us into conflict with the United States, because in 38, I believe, of the 50 United States, there is existing anti-BDS legislation, which means that companies who would do business with countries where there
Would be
is
penalized, would be
boycott
sanctioned.
legislation would be penalized. So that immediately brings us into conflict with America. Also, we're going after a massive ally of America, and that's why you have, for example, Ambassador Mike Huckabee today saying that it was an act of diplomatic intoxication, and a couple of other colorful comments. But I agree with the sentiment, certainly. And and so you also, okay, you first have the American issue, and we've had enormous luck. Well, not, I wouldn't call it luck, because there were key steps put in place by Irish politicians in the past to ensure that we had great commercial ties built with American companies who employ thousands and thousands of people within Ireland and contribute to our enormous corporation tax take that we see today. So we're actually trying to almost throw that away. We're actually, instead of trying to maintain and progress this fantastic thing that we've got going as a country, we want to limit that for some reason.
Certainly.
And then secondly, so you have the American, massive business ties, and then secondly, you have the fact that we exist as a member of the European Union. As I've already mentioned, trade falls to the bureaucrats in Brussels, whether we like it or not. And here we are going off on our own and acting as a bit of a rogue state within the European Union, trying to do our own foreign policy, and that isolates us from Brussels, and certainly brings our credibility down a bit. And then when you talk about it, even from a contemporary point of view, you have the European Union and the United States really on the brink of, if not already in, a trade war over tariffs and such. And here's us going off on our own, waging a war against the United States. Or well, not quite waging a war, but
certainly rubbing them up the wrong way. Put it that way.
Yeah, we'll know what I mean. And this was, some of those points were put to the committee yesterday, and they essentially tried to dismiss it. Firstly, they called any kind of discussion of history whataboutery, and as tried to say multiple times, for God's sake, this is not whataboutery. This is extremely relevant information to the bill. You don't know what you're doing. And then when you mentioned the harm that it will bring to Ireland specifically, they're actually okay with sweeping that under the rug, because Ireland is, as they see it, in the moral right. That a good thing for Ireland to do, even if it means, as I said on GB News, sacrificing ourselves on the altar of Palestinianism. We're going to plow ahead with it anyway and create problems for ourselves, because key people in high positions have decided that the Palestinian Authority and much more ominous factions are a cause that we should sacrifice ourselves for.
Just going back to the comments, to the echo chamber, my understanding, the issue is not only their history knowledge. There are two other subjects that for sure they don't no, they don't really master. One is geography, because I doubt that these people, if I give them a globe or a physical map, if they know what a physical map is, they don't know how to locate Israel, let alone Gaza and the West Bank. And the other one is mathematics, because they are not aware that the Gaza population, despite the so-called genocide, has largely increased since that brings the history topic, since Israel withdrew from Gaza in 2005. Is it something that it's also unknown to the students these days, Jamie?
No, but they're not interested in hearing points that might change their worldview a bit. I mean, and not just students, people like David McCullough on RTE News. Only last night with Alan Chatter, bizarrely, and I really don't even hear people often trying to deny this because it's such a non-disputed fact. He actually on air tried to say that there was extremely little evidence that Hamas used civilian infrastructure for military purposes. And that they have tunnels, over 500 kilometers of tunnels throughout the Gaza Strip, where they have brought many of the hostages over the last 2 years.
Yeah.
So they don't want things that will challenge their own worldview, and that's something I try to do. As I say, I wouldn't have read Nilan Pape and Noam Chomsky book if I didn't want to try and come up against the other side.